Welcome to the High Agency Podcast with your host, Noah Ravoy. That's me. And today's guest is a man that is active and doing things in the world. A lot of men talk about what's wrong with the world. They're worried about the lack of masculinity. They're worried about the rise and power of feminism, but they don't actually do much. Anthony Johnson, today's guest, is a man who is doing things, having multiple events over a number of years. Even during the lockdown times of COVID, he organized one of the biggest Manosphere Events in history. And I'd like to welcome him to talk with us today. Welcome, Anthony.
Howdy. Thanks for having me on, man. Excited to be here.
Yeah, my pleasure. I was really surprised at the height of the COVID lockdowns. Instead of backing down, you doubled down with 3 events at once. Mm-hmm. That was fantastic. Unfortunately, I couldn't attend due to the fact that my country wasn't allowing. I would have got stuck there probably permanently. I'd be your neighbor. But yeah, it's amazing how you've been so active at a time when a lot of other people are frozen and really not doing much of anything. There were other Manosphere events that were canceled or got turned into a podcast, and you just were like, no, straight ahead, full tilt ahead. Let's do 3 at once.
I even, you're right, number one. Number two, yesterday I even saw, this is not that surprising, but a digital marketing, some Ryan Dice guy I follow on Twitter from a while ago. He has like all this digital marketing crap. I don't even know I look at it, I don't even know why the hell I follow it. But I know that he's one of the biggest internet marketers in the world in terms of promoting courses and stuff on that. And they turned their whole, I think, traffic and conversion summit that they do every year into this giant shit show of Zoom calls. Like he showed a video off of it, like it's all cool and like hip and all this fucking stupid shit. And they had literally these giant walls in the studio filled with fucking people coming in on Zoom. It's like it's probably the most gay thing I've ever seen. I just fucking hate it. It's so stupid. It is like I just hate all this fucking hyper digital crap. And the more people, it's like people that are embracing this new normal and this like really insane, New World Order crap. When I see self-improvement people do it, it's just so cringe. It's cringe beyond cringe, and I just hate it. So yeah, we've seen it in the Manosphere, these conferences get turned into basically a Skype show, and then also in other industries too. It's just peak loserdom.
Yeah, there is something powerful about getting together face to face. And the American Revolution, the first American Revolution, happened because men were getting together face to face in bars and taverns and talking about politics and getting angry about it, and occasionally in a fist fight over it. And that physical close quarters interaction where you had to say something to another man and gauge his immediate reaction, and there was feedback, that is extremely powerful. And we don't get that much anymore. We've been very, very isolated. Not just there were always events, of course, but there weren't a lot of people getting out to events. You'll see a lot of people are essentially stuck in their basement or their mom's basement. They're stuck living a isolated life from other people. And that you just can't be a full man if you're not around other men. It's impossible.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of physical, man. Whether it's physical conferences or even something like, movies. As technology has improved in recent years and decades, you've seen everything go streaming. And why I like the utility of that, I've always been a fan of physical media, like 4K DVDs, Blu-rays, things like this, because I like owning things and physically having them in hand so that people can't take them away from you. And as we've seen today with the rise of all this new technology, Amazon, for example, can delete or edit Kindle books on the fly, whatever they want to censor, right? Movies as well. HBO recently with Gone with the Wind, they added this whole new introduction that you had to watch before watching the movie, like on their streaming service, so they can give you all this context for supposed racism in the movie and all this crap or whatever. It's so fucking stupid. And physical media, largely prevents this from happening, or is a major roadblock to it. You can't take the DVD out of my fucking hand. You'll take it from my cold dead hands, this fucking DVD, right, or this book. To burn a book digitally is way easier than burning it physically. To burn the book physically, I have a shit ton behind me, a lot of them written by speakers like yourself and stuff. Speakers like you anyway. I don't know that you're working on books now too. I need to interview you actually. Yeah, there you go.
Just finished my book.
I need it.
And yeah, I'm really getting some great feedback from the first people looking at the book.
Anyway, when I get that book at my house, if you want to burn that, you're going to do it over my dead body. Doing it off a Kindle device or something or whatever, my Amazon account is a million times easier. And that's really not only Orwellian, but dangerous. Information and ideas and, the free flow of those ideas is super, super important for human life and for the future of liberty and everything, right down to the issues we focus on more closely, like masculinity, the manosphere and stuff.
Yes, almost every post-apocalyptic story or movie or novel, there's the issue in there of an attempt to destroy all of existing culture and replace it with something else. Yeah. And so there'll be people hoarding books, hoarding art, hoarding other things that are a representation of the previous existing culture.
Yep.
And that culture gives us a stability. The books give us a stability. If you read a good example is reading the dictionary. If you get one that's pre-World War II, you'll often notice that words are a lot more richly defined there. You'll look at words now, and it's as if the victors have rewritten the dictionaries. The people that have gotten control of this media are rewriting it. It's not.
I want to say that happened recently. I saw Google, or not Google, but Webster, some major dictionary online. They redefined, I think, sexism, specifically sexism, and they slanted it, and they were like, typically it's against women. I'm like, holy fuck! Like, this is so. They're just redefining words in the fly. It's not the only one, but that was just the more egregious one. Sexism, of course, should just be against, discrimination on the basis of sex, just in a very simplistic sense, not against women or even against men. Even I think it's more popular today against men than it is against women by far.
Well, language is how we're programmed as humans. When we think about what I'm going to do today, I think I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, but they're words. I'm not imagining the physical actions. Yep. So when you can control words, you can control how people are programmed. If people are programmed to behave in a certain way or to hate a certain thing that has a certain label, now you just change the meaning of that label and you've got a chance to control them. Yep. Basically, every white person that's not ashamed of being white gets called a Nazi now. Heck, you don't even have to be white. I remember there were people saying that somehow one of the 21 events was racist, even though about a third of the speakers are black.
Yep.
And this is what's happened is they've come up with these words and said, bad man, bad man, bad man. And now they can take those labels and they put them on whoever they want. And this way they control people's perception. And most people are very weak against that. I think most of the people that went to school and had these positive experiences in school where they enjoyed being programmed and they enjoyed being squished down into their little box, they get out of school and they get out of university and they want to continue that experience of some knowledge figure telling them what the world is and how to believe things and what they should do. And they crave it. And they keep looking for it afterwards. And a lot of the men that really stand on their own, we didn't particularly like school. We didn't find public school was satisfying to us. We often, many of us never went to university, or if we did, we had issues there with not fitting into the accepted social norms of the school. So this is a fact that we've created as a society, people who are desperately looking for someone to tell them what to believe.
Yep. Yeah, it's disgusting. I mean, it's such a repulsive and repugnant way to live as a man or even as a human being more widely, male or female. You mentioned school. I mean, God, when I was the older I got, there's a couple of different ways you could look at this, but as I progressed through, K through 12 in the United States through school became increasingly, I think also with the times, maybe less about learning, less about knowledge, more about memorization and more authoritarian. More rules, more restrictions, you need a pass to go down the hallway, all this bullshit, right? The more it became like that, the less I liked it and the more I fucking hated it and the more I rebelled. And I was in, for example, in high school, it was in the hardest classes you could take in the state, international baccalaureate, whatever.
Oh, wow. IB. Yeah.
IB. Yeah. Yeah. It started in Switzerland or something like that. So I was in IB classes, which were weighted even more heavily than AP classes. And,
they're pretty close to the first year or two of university in difficulty.
Yeah, for sure. And I was like 13, 14 years old doing this stuff when I started doing it freshman year, and all the way through senior year I did it. But I was like notoriously just the biggest troll of my teachers. I would absolutely just make their lives a living hell. The ones I didn't like, which is probably like 80% of them, one or two I'd usually like each year because they were more old school. They were more respectful. They were much more about learning, and you could tell that they respected their students. These other ones were just fucking, early wokesters, I guess we could call them, before everything became the Great Awakening in 2013. I graduated high school in 2006, for example. But yeah, I mean that's a good. You're right. I think it's an element of being masculine when I was young, and the less it became about learning, less it became about knowledge, the more it became about being obedient. The more I fucking hated it. And we see that, but you're right. You see that out into the world today. The students, I can see it on Facebook. All these the people I went to high school with, the ones that are more obedient and that were not on my side of trolling the teachers. There was a group of us. I would lead this whole gang of trolls against the teachers, and the ones who are not, they're all just fucking losers now. They're the ones who are bitching at me in college that I should, my business was crazy. I should give up on the business and get a real job. They're all fucking unemployed now.
Yeah.
And I'm running 3 businesses.
There's
media and everything.
There's a certain risk, but also a strength in being your own man and creating your own thing. Yeah. And there's a fragility in wanting to follow the crowd because you stop mattering. You become a grain of sand in the brick that someone's building their own empire out of. Instead of being your own thing, you become disposable. A lot of people are going to start regretting the fact that they've made themselves unessential. They're even being called that. Nope, sorry, don't come to work anymore. Your job is unessential.
Yep.
It's to be told that is going to be psychologically destructive to people. But I think that if they can take that and go somewhere with it, they're going to come all the way back around the other end and realize that there is some power in being told that your old way of living is unsustainable. It's not real.
Yeah.
One of the things you've been talking a lot about lately, I've noticed, is the cult of forgiveness.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about that. I know that wasn't in the initial things that I mentioned to talk about. But I know you're on the right track on that. It's exactly what I think on that. Tell us a little bit about that cult of forgiveness.
Yeah, so if the guys watching this notice, I was looking around I have books fucking all around me, not just behind me. I have like tables of books there's fucking books everywhere. So I'm looking for what book I can grab to show that off. The ones I need are behind this giant another banner I have. I can't even get to them right now. But they're by a psychologist, a Swiss psychologist, Alice Miller. She died, I think, in 2010, 2013. But she was famous in, I think, the late 70s, 80s, and even through the 90s, writing, I guess you could say, books not only on psychology, but many of them focused on childhood trauma, abuse, and in many ways the concept of forgiveness. She also analyzed certain historical figures like Adolf Hitler, trying to basically, break down and psychoanalyze why he was the way he was. You never hear much about his parents, for example. All these documentaries about World War II, World War II, World War II. You have this, super, super evil figure. Okay. Adolf Hitler, this dictator that murdered all these millions of people and stuff. But of course, not even, well behind the Soviets and the Chinese and their slaughter. But you never hear about where he came from, other than being a painter, or, and some shit like this.
Yeah, they all say that he got rejected from art school, so he decided to take over the world.
Yeah, and burn people and throw people in ovens, like it's fucking nuts. No, he had a really fucked up childhood, and his parents, I think, were there's basically it's something worth looking into. But so Alice Miller was one of the. I've always been skeptical of the concept of forgiveness, not too much publicly, but when I hear certain things, it just kind of gives me a gut feeling like there's something there worth looking into someday, and just kind of happenstance. Well, Richard Grandin's work, I would say, was my first stepping stone to understanding that forgiving abusers is a bad idea, especially when it's a social mainstream normie push. Like, what does the average person believe? They actually believe all this crap they read about forgiveness. And that's why when they see it on Twitter, on social media, on Instagram, they like. They're not liking something that they didn't previously believe. They're not retweeting something they didn't already believe. They're just reaffirming what they already believe. But that person is hitting kind of a guilt button in them. Like, they're mad at somebody. The mainstream idea is that you should not be mad. Anger is bad. Hate is bad. All this stuff. No, like, you should hate evil. You should fill your heart with hate if someone wants to fucking kill you and round you up and throw you in a fucking gas chamber or FEMA camp. You should hate that person with a passion, and you should fucking seek to stop them by any means necessary.
I think if you're a man, you shouldn't be able to. You shouldn't trust a man who's incapable of hate.
Yeah,
there's something wrong with that man if he can't hate. Yeah. A man who can't control his hate is very different than a man who just can't hate. It shows a fundamental weakness in his emotional perception of his life. If you can't hate, how can you love? Because I hate the things that threaten the things I love.
Yes.
If I can't hate, then am I really loving anything? And that kind of emotional numbness is usually the result of childhood trauma.
Yep. Very well put. Very well put. It's the nail on the head. And these are the things that Alice Miller speaks about very eloquently. She reminds me, she even looks in some ways like Ayn Rand. She's kind of a psychologist, Ayn Rand. Ayn Rand was a little bit into psychology, but not really. She was much more into philosophy. And she was a novelist. She was an author, fiction as well as nonfiction. So yeah, but there's kind of a cult of forgiveness. I call them the forgiveness police in terms of self-improvement people. Not just the Manosphere, but the whole self-improvement community, worldwide will focus on this. It's all nonsense. It doesn't mean forgiveness is completely useless as a tool in human life and that it's wrong in every circumstance. It's ridiculous. But the way that it is so widely applied, and you know what? One of the main things it does is it keeps abusers in your life. It is this unwarranted forgiveness that is so rigorously encouraged. A lot of it's backed up by religion too, and I think it's one of the things that, if you identify your forgiveness advice, we'll call it, as religious advice, I don't have a problem with it. It's when people present things in a way that it's like practical advice, and it even seeps out into culture genuinely. It extends well beyond any religious context, and people just propagate this stuff into the future. And yeah,
well, I think we're going to hear a big push on that over the next little while. If and I doubt this is what's going to happen, but if somehow Trump doesn't get a second term, we're going to hear a lot about this. We've been threatening you for 4 years. We've been saying how you're all a bunch of evil Nazis and this and that and the other thing. But let's all get along now that we're in power. And that's what every abuser says. This is how we can spot the abusers. They never take personal responsibility for what they've done, which would demonstrate that they have agency over it. They never take personal responsibility. They never truly apologize. They're sorry I got caught.
That's right.
Sorry it bothers you, but never, I am deeply sorry for what I've done. And they never work to undo the damage.
They don't seek redemption.
Yeah.
That's why forgiveness is so toxic when it's applied out of context, which is 80-90% of the time people do it. You're trying, and then they dress it up and they have all these fancy rationalizations and magical benefits and wishful thinking. It's for me, bro. It's for you. When they're giving you advice, it's for you, man. Don't hold hate in your heart, bro. No, it's all bullshit. And they also give you a lot of false binaries. These extreme things like, if you don't forgive them, the hate is going to eat you alive forever. This is stupid. Like, you should not, challenging the cult of forgiveness does not mean you should walk around 24/7 fucking angry at certain people that were abusers in the rest previously in your life or something. That's just a stupid way to live. And I'm not suggesting that. What I am suggesting, though, is that forgiveness is massively abused as a tool, and it's very toxic, used wrongly, which is most of the time. And it keeps you trapped. It keeps you trapped in toxic, abusive relationships, whether it's physically in real life, proximity of people you live with or whatever, intimate relationships, but even in your own mind. You're falsely forgiving somebody who's not even seeking forgiveness, is a lot of times how this is used, and not only not seeking forgiveness in words, but never mind in action through redemption. Like, what can I do to make amends and make this right? So you don't see that, and it's all just these magical benefits, and you're gonna set free your heart and all this stuff. No, bullshit. You've talked about acting true to your heart, I believe.
You need to use your emotions as fuel to make you do things. You can decide intellectually, I'm going to do something, and this is anyone who coaches or is a therapist to people. They know the client will come in and say, "Yeah, I'm going to do better. I'm going to do this and do the other thing," and you're looking at them and you're like, "Nah, you're going to be back in next week. It's going to be the same thing." We have to tap into that emotion so that when you go to do it, people do what they feel like doing most of the time. They generally don't do things they don't feel like doing. Most people have very little self-control and self-regulation, and they don't want to waste it all on silly things. And so if you get your emotions aligned with the things you want to do, that gives you that energy to do it.
Well, let me comment on this. This is directly in alignment from Alice Miller with what you're saying. She has a book, and I have it probably 10 feet from me. And the book you can get on Amazon. It's called The Body Never Lies. And it's one of the main things that she teaches and promotes, not only in that book, but even previously and after that. And what she's referring to is really your emotions that are being communicated through your body. And that's, for example, when you get angry, when you're fearful, when you feel courageous, when you feel dedicated to something, whatever it is. You need to act, well, not only your actions you need to figure out and self-direct, but the emotions are not lying to you. The body never lies. There's a reason you're having these emotional responses, and they're not only fuel, but they're knowledge that you can tap into. And one of them,
Yes.
would be anger. If you're angry at somebody, and it's instinctual, there's probably a fucking reason for it you should look into. At least
Yeah, anger can be very protective.
Yes.
There's a lot of men that, because of this cult of forgiveness, they're actually making the people around them worse. And it would be good for them to get angry with these people. Now, anger doesn't mean you're going to take any specific action. You can be very angry. I think you're kind of like this. When you're angry, it's not necessarily visible to anyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah. That kind of cold anger, I would call that the most masculine of angers, is that, yeah, I'm angry, but you don't know it. You're going to find out, because I'm going to do stuff, but you're going to find out. But right now I'm not out of control anger, you see?
Yeah. It's the Hulk saying, that's no secret, I'm always angry.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think to a certain extent, this culture of automatic forgiveness probably came from women throughout history. There were times when women would get, their tribe would be destroyed. They'd be taken off to a new tribe. And the new tribe wasn't necessarily really nice and accommodating to them. They were essentially slaves in the new tribe. And they'd be given a new husband, all of this. And they just had to make do.
I would say it's a lot like
the ones that teach.
I would say it's probably a lot like feminism. It's the women, and then it's also the beta simps, beta males, the gamma males, shit like that. If you notice, look at a guy like Donald Trump. You can look through all these YouTube videos and videos of Trump throughout the decades, not just years, but decades. And does this seem like a guy who forgives people easily or at all? No. He openly talks about, he's like, yeah, I like getting even. I like getting fucking revenge. You get hit, you punch back 10 times harder, 100 times harder. You fucking destroy him, right? This is how this dude operates publicly as a billionaire, and now as president of the United States for a long time. And I think that's actually he's a very alpha dude in his own specific way, unique to him, as well as a style. There's other alpha males like him, the Chad Thundercocks of the world, and the Chad Preets and all these people, right? All these men.
Yeah, he's alpha socially and in business. He's a social alpha.
Yeah.
He's the leader of. He's always been a leader of men. He's always had people following him.
But he's not an auto forgiver. It's these beta males and male feminists and women who are more inclined to do this. Like automatic forgiveness. That's a really good way to put it, because it's mindless. It's automatic. Yeah. It's or someone told me to, or socially it's the right thing to do, and that's the mainstream opinion, and it's what the Bible told me to do, and it's what the Ten Commandments told me to do. And it's all fucking nonsense. Anything mindless is bad, period.
Yeah.
Like I'm an objectivist. I believe that to the bone. Irrationality is bad. It's the root of evil. Acting mindlessly like a fucking not pathetic necessarily, but as a human being, it's pathetic to act like an animal and not as a human being. And this is forgiveness is one of the ways that happens. And what happens then after the fact, I think this is what Alice Miller, the psychologist, argues, psychotherapist actually, I think. It's basically the number one enabler of childhood trauma and intergenerational trauma. It's the reason trauma gets passed down through generations. People wonder why. Oh, they blame genetics and shit like that. No, it's stupid. It's because you forgive people who are fucking abusive to you, and you don't stop the cycle. So it just keeps going. It has momentum. Why wouldn't it stop? And
if you were
how the wheel keeps spinning.
If you were hit as a kid, the instinct is to then hit your kids.
Yeah.
Because that's what was modeled for you. And if you say, oh, I forgive my parents, they didn't know any better, it's no big deal. Yep. You're more likely to hit your kid, because when you hit them, you're not saying like remembering your parents hitting you. As a kid who was hit by my parents a lot, when I have my kids and I feel that instinct to hit them, I don't think about even them. I'm thinking about like, man, how did I feel when my parents hit me? Yep. And there's no forgiveness there, because there was never an opportunity for them. Like I gave them opportunities, but they never took those opportunities. Yep. So it's sharp in my mind, and I have to, we have to correct the intergenerational traumas. They're pretty deep in us, and we can't correct them by just intellectual means. We need to have it on emotional and intellectual working together.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I told a couple of young parents not too long ago, they were like, why don't you believe in, you know, hitting children, even for disciplinary reasons, which I think is different from, you know, closed fist abuse.
Yeah.
But even for, you know, spanking and stuff, I'm like, well, I don't, you know, my philosophy is simple. You shouldn't hit people you love. And it just got real quiet and real cold real quick. Because I'm like, yeah, like when people hear that, they're like, oh, fuck. Like, yeah, do you think you should hit people you love? You think that's, you know, the right thing to do? No, it's fucking stupid. It's dumber than shit. So I don't support it at all. And
no,
yeah,
and it tends to cultivate within the children an acceptance of other people abusing them.
Yeah.
So a lot of people say, oh, if I don't hit my kids, they're going to grow up weak. You know, especially boys, they're going to grow up weak.
Yep.
The reality is they grow up weak to whatever abuse they're given. So if you have a manipulative mother, you're going to grow up to be weak towards female manipulation. If you have a parent hitting you, you're going to grow up to be overly accepting of physical violence against you. You're going to tolerate it more than you should because you've been cultured to tolerate it. And there are, you know, I do hit my son. We go to his boxing club and we put on boxing gloves and we hit each other. We don't hurt each other. And it is under control, and he's happy about it. We play fight games and wrestle games. We have foam swords, and we beat each other with those. And you can still teach your son to be strong and tough and masculine, and he can still learn how to be a man without beating him. You know,
That's right.
That is not part of what it is to be a man, is to willingly accept beatings. That's not part of masculinity.
I agree. I agree 1,000%. In addition to that, I would say that you know, parental abuse against a child is particularly toxic and dangerous. I believe it causes brain trauma, and there's studies on this that look into this and things like that. One of the books is, for example, "The Body Keeps a Score." I forget, Bessel van der Kolk, I think is his name. He's an MD, a psychiatrist in the United States. That book came out in 2015. Amazon, "The Body Keeps a Score." Excellent book as well on these subjects. Well, one of the biggest issues that Alice Miller brought up and that I've read about elsewhere is that your parents are your creators. Whatever you believe about nature and God and all this stuff, you know, at the end of the day, your parents met, they fucked, and they made you. That's how that happened 100% of the time, at least for now, before we get Gattaca shit going in, right? And, you know, artificial wombs. So they created you physically. They then, you know, at some point probably raised you, unless they split up and you were in foster care and stuff. Anyway, they created you, and it is their job ultimately to protect you, or unless they failed in that process, right? But it's still their responsibility and their job. For your ultimate creator, or not maybe your ultimate, but your definite immediate creator and your ultimate protector, for them to then turn around and physically be a source of danger to you, they're supposed to be your source of protection, primary and, like, you know, top physical protector in life, to then also be a source of very serious danger to you is like a schism, is like a fucking wedge in your mind. And little kids don't have the ability to understand this. Trauma, you know, people, you know, men go to war and come out with, you know, PTSD and stuff. That's serious. That's a big thing in itself, but that's happening in adulthood. When this happens to children, their brains are still forming rapidly, like sponges, we call them. I mean, this is really, really divisive. This is, I think, you know, leads to things like borderline personality disorder, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, all kinds of shit.
Yeah,
I mean, why wouldn't it? It's such a divide for them to get that kind of input, protection, and then physical danger beat the shit out of you. Like, it's fucking stupid.
Yeah, it actually produces a rush of cortisol, and the idea of the cortisol is to block learning, block memory, so that you don't remember the trauma. But what ends up happening, if it happens enough, that helps you with a trauma or two. If it happens often enough, then every time we're stressed, our body releases this excessive amount of cortisol, and we blank out, we disassociate. And I've had clients like that, getting them out of that disassociating loop to the point where they can't do normal things that a person would take for granted, like, you know, going to search for a job online. When they go to do that, it triggers that cortisol release, and they freeze up, even though nothing in there is that hard. It's clicking and typing. And it's because the cortisol response is over attenuated to the point where they're no longer functioning as adult, and it can take decades for people to bring that down to a normal level. Meanwhile, they often end up raising their own kids, and the moment that they end up in a confrontation with their children, their brain shuts off and they work completely on the instinct their parent trained them to do, and they do what their parent did. And so it goes generation to generation.
Yep.
And the way to get out of that, this is showing your agency, is doing what you're doing. Do the research, find out how this works. Look into what makes good parenting, what went wrong in my own childhood, and start to unprogram ourselves from the things we've learned. And you brought up something very important, is not parenting unthinkingly.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing. And I think it's worse right now due to social media and phones, because a lot of parents are on their phone all the time.
Yep.
And they're not reacting to their children.
I mean, the kids on the phone too.
Out of the way so they can get back on the phone again.
It's both of them. The kids on a tablet or a phone at an incredibly young age, and then the parents on a phone too. Women charge my phone. I charge my phone. That's all they do now. Charge my phone. Yeah, it's the whole. I mean, everything in the world right now, in a lot of ways, is going to hell in a handbasket in terms of culture, masculinity, femininity, politics, obviously, like economics. It's like, holy fuck, everything's kind of burning down. We'll see how it all goes, but yeah, it's pretty bad.
I think all this chaos is creating an opportunity as well. And we've seen this in the last year it went from something like 5 to 10% of American parents were interested in homeschooling, and now it's about a third.
Yeah.
That's the biggest leap in people who want to do homeschooling since government schools became a thing in the US. And once you get that number of people doing it, pretty soon everyone knows someone who is homeschooled. Yep. And that's when things in society really spread, is when you know someone that's done it. Someone, I decided when I was 14 not to go back to school anymore. I said, this isn't working for me. I'm not learning anything. And I just spent about 2 weeks during the summer with friends of mine who were homeschooled. And I'm like, oh, that's a thing. I went back and told my parents, I'm not doing it anymore. Here's homeschool. My friends photocopied for me a couple of pages showing the laws that said I could do it. And, my parents went along with what I said, because basically I'm just not going to show up. You can send me to school. I'll get on the bus, but I'm not going into school. And so better that we work together than work apart. And I essentially homeschooled myself.
Wow.
It was a much better experience than I was getting in school. I learned more. I started a business. It was actually the first thing I did, is went out and started a business. I thought I'm going to learn more by doing than I'm going to learn by reading books and sitting down and, getting someone to talk to me. And I learned a tremendous amount, right, running a business, about people, about managing people, about getting employees, about, how people interact with each other, things which you don't really learn in school because it's such an artificial environment. And it really shaped the person that I am today. I essentially had to start coaching my employees, because if you're a kid and you start a business, the only kind of people that will work for you are people that are desperate for work. And they're usually desperate for work because they're not very good workers. Yeah. And so I had to figure out how to make money with very poor quality workers on a business that didn't have big margins. And it was super stressful, but I loved it because I was in control. I had power for what I was doing. And part of the problem with the public education system is kids get no power over what they're doing. They come home, the parents never let them have any independence. They have no real power, or they're completely abandoned, which is a form also of not having independence, because you're completely abandoned on your own. You don't have the security that you need to explore your independence. Yeah. And so it's really a difficult thing for a lot of kids. They end up graduating from college in their mid-20s. Something, after taking 7 or 8 years to finish a 5-year degree, they've never had a job. They've never had independence. They've never done anything on their own. And then we wonder why we have a society of people that need safe spaces and need to have, warnings before movies, because they can't handle the content of the film like an adult.
Well, that's a really good point. When they can't handle the content, they get triggered, right? The trigger warnings and all this shit, truth warnings, really. But what I wanted to back up on, this reminds me of it, to back a step up on this. You mentioned, healing from these things and reading and, acquiring knowledge. And we talked, with forgiveness and all the childhood trauma. One of the things I got from Alice Miller, I don't think she ever said it, maybe, but one of my interpretations of her work as a psychologist, as an author, is that feeling is healing. And in a lot of ways, if not almost every way, these are the lingering effects of trauma, of CPTSD, of childhood trauma, of disassociation, like you mentioned. That's a big symptom of it. These are all, anxiety in the manosphere. This is huge. All these guys are just avoiding all these beta behaviors, happy wife, happy life. Oh, let me check with the boss. Let me check with the wife, all this shit, right? Whatever the configurations of it are, these are all, and Sean Smith, Dr. Sean Smith is talking about this recently too on Twitter. These are all basically ways to avoid feelings of anxiety. Dissociation is a complete avoidance of feeling at all. The numbness, of feeling, or avoiding all these feelings, right? Anything. So if you want to heal, you have to feel at the end of the day. And, all the knowledge in the world, all the books in the world, even all the coaching in the world, it's going to mean jack shit if you can't, at the end of the day, emotionally integrate, what you're learning. Not just intellectually know what to do, but you can feel what to do, and you can process feelings. You can relieve your emotional constipation, which is what disassociation is, which is what childhood trauma in some ways functions as. You can't feel things. Richard Grannon, our good buddy from, we met in Poland at the convention, he talks about having an emotional, he has kind of a color wheel of emotions. It's pretty cool that he promotes. But being emotionally literate is what he says, emotionally literate. And when you have a lot of childhood trauma, when you've been abused, when you have had shit parents, which a lot of people do, this is what happens. You're emotionally illiterate. So you disassociate, you run away from feelings of anxiety or confrontation, like with a wife or a girlfriend who's like putting her foot down and you're just too much of a pussy to fucking put your foot down. Be like, no, bitch, do what you're told. So they, happy wife, happy life. Oh, let me check with the boss. Oh, let me go get my balls for my wife for 5 minutes. Like all this fucking shit.
And we talk to my better half.
Yeah. Oh, God. Oh, it's my anniversary. Oh, I'm so lucky to be with her. Oh my God. Oh, she puts up with a piece of shit like me. You see this shit. George Bruno is great at posting about this. He sees this on Facebook and stuff all day. And his fans send it to him off YouTube and stuff. It's just fucking disgusting. But it's sad too. It's people who've been through abuse.
I always think these guys are actually appeasing their mother.
Oh yeah.
It has nothing to do with their wife, because I guarantee you their wives hate them doing this.
Oh yeah.
It's like it dries up a woman to talk like that. Yeah. She wants to think that she literally couldn't do any better than you. It'd be impossible because she's hit the maximum for her hypergamy in you. And that's what gets her turned on. Not that, you're some groveling animal beneath her. That doesn't turn women on. And they're talking to their childhood trauma. You're absolutely right in that.
Yep.
And it's, there is a huge fear of confrontation in people today that I don't remember seeing when I was a kid. I remember when I was a kid, men being super confrontational. Like, I remember men in the church, men everywhere being way more confrontational than today. I remember, I'm 42, turned 42 a couple of days ago, and I remember kids being super confrontational. Mm-hmm. My son's like that, and he's out making confrontations with people, friendly. Like, he's not starting fights with them. But in games, he's aggressive with the other kids a bit, and he will push himself around a bit. And he wants them to push back because that's part of the fun of it. And he likes to hang out with the Russian kids because their culture is still very much like that. And so they will push back, and they'll give him as good as they get, and he really enjoys that. But it is, in general, we have this culture that will not confront you directly, face to face, head on, because they're afraid.
Well, we were talking about forgiveness as well. Throughout this episode, you mentioned I've been talking about that on Twitter this year, and as well as recently, it kind of gets back on my mind. But forgiveness, the way that the forgiveness police, I call them, the wokesters, forgive wokesters, what they're doing is it's an avoidance of confrontation. It's, hey, you wronged me, you were abusive, or you had a major fault with me in some way. And rather than confront that issue and hold you accountable, I'm going to avoid it and just give you this fake forced forgiveness, rather than saying, hey, you fucked up, you haven't apologized or sought redemption, I don't forgive you, you're a piece of shit, and goodbye. That's a cutting of a thread. That's a cutting of rapport, breaking a rapport that requires emotional and even physical, face-to-face confrontation. And people don't have the balls to do that because they've been conditioned out of that. They've been either, the tail end of intergenerational trauma that's been going on for decades or hundreds of years. And they've been conditioned to not do it. The whole society encourages this fake forgiveness, this forced forgiveness, auto forgiveness, and it's stupid. It's an avoidance of your own emotions and your own truth and your experience of life. Like, no, this person fucked up and there's no need to forgive them, and I hold them accountable and they're dead to me, or whatever your solution, whatever your decision is on how to respond to the action. or to the
Well,
creation.
confrontation, almost every good thing that we get in life comes out of a confrontation.
Yeah.
You know, we go out, our ancestors would go out and confront nature and come back with a nice animal for the family to eat. You know, we would confront nature and chop a forest down so we could set up a field and grow some food. It's all about confrontation. We confront each other, and ideally, this is part of the problem with the forgiveness culture, is people won't confront until the relationship is unrepairable. Very often, if like I'm very early to confront, so I want to confront people before the relationship is unrepairable.
Yeah.
If that's possible. You know, if they're not truly antagonistic, maybe they're just stupid. I want to confront them really early on. And very often that means that the relationship is repairable. That means things can get fixed. If you have a group of men, a fraternity of men, and they're really masculine men, they're constantly confronting each other, disagreeing. I mean, generally men should be fairly disagreeable, and we're disagreeing with each other. We're confronting, and nobody in the group is saying, oh man, if I make this confrontation, I'm out of the group and he's not going to like me anymore. And, you know, we're being too worried about being liked is a huge problem today. Everyone wants to be liked.
Well,
nobody wants to be respected.
Yeah, this is hitting the nail on the head. And this is true even within the manosphere. We can call it the paradox of the manosphere. You have a whole community of men that in many ways are genuinely focused on red pill truths, we'll call them, and masculinity, common sense masculinity, old school masculinity, whatever you want to call it. There's a desire for genuine common sense femininity in women, and gender roles and things like this, right? That makes sense. Two gender system, two sexes of the human race, the sexually dimorphic species. But even in the manosphere, there have been various fights throughout the years, and I've had some of my own, pretty high profile stuff. And basically, what I'm getting at here, the paradox of the manosphere, is that it has always been filled with betas, massive amount of betas, recovering betas, all the stuff, whatever you call it. But there's a revolving door, so a lot of them don't even heal themselves and become much more masculine, much more alpha, we'll call it. They just stay a beta, and then either they stay a beta indefinitely, or they just leave and stay a beta on their own outside of the manosphere. The issue is then whenever there's a real fight in the manosphere in some way between different leaders and stuff, all the betas can't handle it because they're all confrontation avoiding pussies. They're all a bunch of beta males that hate confrontation. They hate the feeling, the tension that comes with that. They can't stand it, and they make up all these excuses for why this can't happen. Blah 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 blah. And there's like
fighting.
Yeah, exactly. They can't stand. They really can't stand it, and it's because they have their maybe low testosterone, but just low masculinity. Men who are much more dominant and confrontational, confrontations are normal for them. They don't mind these things, and maybe even look forward to them. Look at someone like Donald Trump. Donald Trump loves fighting and winning and battle and conflict. He lives for this shit.
He provoked intentionally.
Yeah, exactly. That doesn't mean you have to necessarily in your own life follow the exact same strategy, but in general, men who are more masculine, they don't mind confrontation. Maybe they like it, maybe they're okay with it, maybe somewhere there's a spectrum of how to deal with this in a healthy way. Not everyone's going to be the exact same, process it the exact same way, but it's the avoidance of confrontation that is really pathetic. In men in particular. Women, I get it. Women are not physically suited for combat. Their whole lifestyle for a couple 100,000 years has been more or less avoiding confrontation and dealing with things in covert, indirect ways. But men are much more direct, and we need to be direct, and it's healthy for us to be direct and confrontational when it's appropriate, which is a lot of the fucking time. We're a social species. There's now billions of us. We're going to get in fights and do shit on a personal one-to-one level, as well as nations and all the way in between.
Yeah, my best friend in grade school, it's a British kid, gets in the class the very first day. Oh, here's a new kid. He's come from England, blah, blah, blah. I walk up to him. I don't remember what we said to each other, but we were fighting within 5 seconds after the teacher stopped talking and like really beating the crap out of each other. Neither of us would give up. Nice. And they actually had to get some of the male teachers from another class to drag us apart. We go down to the principal's office. We get sat down on either side, waiting for the principal. Before the principal had time to come out and talk to us, we'd made up and we were best friends. And I remember saying, I respect you because you're a bit smaller than me and you wouldn't give up in the fight.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't back down. And I respected his willingness to confront me and to not back down. And I think with men, I mean, how do you really know the measure of a man unless you've been in a confrontation either with him, like against him, or with him against other people.
Yeah.
You can't really measure a man until you've seen him confront people.
Yep. I agree. Yeah, it's a good test, man. It's a real physical test in real life. Yeah, it's where, we talked about the convention and stuff and physical things earlier on in the podcast here. And it's the same thing, It's talk, 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 talk. But what does that mean until there's action behind it? Act on verba, action over words,
And I think
too.
And I think for a lot of young people and a lot of men that haven't been very active, they're looking for a place to start. Where do I start? And where I'd say to start is to start learning about confrontation. Start learning how to confront people in your life that are irritating you. Listen to that feeling. If someone's irritating you, don't ignore it. Deal with it. Deal with them. I'd say also get out with other men. And if you don't have any men in your area, or you don't know how to go out and connect with other men, come to an event like one of the 21 convention events.
Yeah.
You're going to go away from that with a load of energy. It's one of the most positive experiences I ever had in my life. And I was at one of the small ones, in Europe here, it's a little bit smaller. Go to one of the American ones there in Florida, and you come out of that with the emotional energy. You feel you could do anything.
Yep.
I see the comments from the guys, the speakers on some of our shared chats, and they're super energetic. They're hyper. They go out there like, this is going to be the best time ever. And they're out doing whatever it is in their life at a much higher level. And these are men who are already successful.
That's right.
You go there and you're just trying to figure out life. And this is going to be your jump start. This is going to be your highlight of your year. And this is absolutely what men should be doing. Pick something, get started, get working on it, and take actions. The more actions you take, the easier it is to take another action.
Yep. I appreciate the kind words and the positive comments, man. That is 21Con. That is 21 Summit. It's a very real physical thing that really amps everyone up. This year, more than ever, we saw that even like weeks and months later now, guys, the speakers and some of the attendees have been talking about it, how much it amped them up this year. And I'm not surprised. That's what we're all about. That's what we've always been doing. And that's why I've always resisted and been disgusted with, virtual summits and digital summits and all this fucking fake bullshit. And you even see this more positively in healthy political movements like MAGA. Look at Trump, the rallies that Trump's been hosting for years and years and years, especially recently. Even with COVID, do you think he did digital rallies? No, that's like retarded. What did he do? He kept doing physical rallies, bigger and bigger and bigger. One of them had like 57,000 people at it in Pennsylvania. And his opponent, Biden, had like, 1,000 people watching a live stream? I mean, it's getting people to physically go somewhere is a lot more difficult than digital. And to see that, him trounce that was just awesome. But it's a very healthy way to get together. And like you said, in the early 1700s or in the 1700s, even the men getting together, talking about politics, getting in fights and, hashing stuff out. Physical is where it's at, man. It's why the 21 convention, no matter how much I piss people off and rub them the wrong way or the right way, and they love what I do, the convention itself is a really serious, long-term, major respect because it's so physical and so well done and so professional. And it's hard to do. Even when people don't like it and will make up excuses and try to criticize it and all this fake bullshit, it's still, they know, and everyone knows deep down behind the veneer, behind the narcissistic mask, the fake bullshit, that it's hard to put on a conference. It's hard to gather people from around the world and around the country to fly them all in. 95% of our attendees that show up, for example, and speakers, they don't live in Florida. They have to fly in. Other countries, other states, it's a huge logistical thing where they take, 3, 4, 5, 6 days out of their life to come be at the conference and take time out of work and family life and whatever else is going on and get the money together for hotel and flight and the ticket and all these things. It's a major logistical event to put something together like that versus a fucking Zoom call. And
I think that difficulty, that barrier to entry where you have to physically show up, filters. This is why it's so positive, is that you're not going to go there to whine. You're not going to you're going to buy a plane ticket and a ticket to attend and food and just to whine and complain. Yep. But you have an online event and all you have to do is click on a button and it opens up a screen. And now I'm going to look at an online event. It's easy then to be negative because you don't have anything invested in it. It's easy to undermine a thing that you haven't put anything into.
That's right.
And that is a big part of the reason why it's super important that we get together, because it changes our entire nature. We start becoming more positive as people. This has been a long-term criticism in the manosphere, is that there's a lot of negativity. And it's true because when you take the red pill, you notice a whole bunch of things in the world aren't right.
Yeah.
You start to say, hey, this isn't right. Feminism is not just bad for men, it's bad for women, it's killing everybody. It's bad, terrible for children.
Yep.
You even start noticing political problems in the world because it's all connected.
Yep.
That can turn into a black pill real easy. You can go into nihilism and depression and permanent anger, and an unproductive anger. And getting together in person is the antidote to that.
Yeah.
That is the antidote to it. Because you get together in person, you're beginning to solve a problem. Problems for men are opportunities to demonstrate how good we are at solving problems.
Yeah.
So that's why women give us little problems. They give us little problems to solve, to say, hey, is he any good at solving problems? Let me give him this little problem. And they generally stop doing that if they recognize pretty quickly that we can solve problems. They don't need to do that for us if they see us out in the world solving problems. This is why they don't shit test you if you're out demonstrating your ability in the world. But the world doesn't shit test you. The world is shit testing men, not just women. Life shit tests you. And the more that we get together physically and start solving problems and talk to each other, and there are businesses that started because men got together at a 21 convention.
Yep.
And they said, hey, yeah, I'm a positive guy. I've got this problem. And someone else says, yeah, I got a solution for that. And someone says, I can sell it for you. And they get together and they're starting businesses. They're not there to complain. They're there.
They write books together, man. I mean, books, businesses, friendships that have spanned years and even over a decade now. I mean, it really is. People hear you, you're a speaker, and they hear you talk up the event, and they may think you're exaggerating or something. You're not. It really is that positive and that powerful. And
I literally can't explain how good it was. There's words for it. You have to actually show up. If I could explain how good it was, then you wouldn't need to show up because you could just listen to what I said and enjoy that. But you actually have to show up to know what it's like.
And I think one of the reasons for that is that there's so much physical communication when you're in person that's not there when you're here digital. Even here where we have face-to-face visuals on each other, it's a lot different than if you were here next to me and I could read your entire body language, your facial expressions live, not delayed by a couple seconds or whatever. Audio was coming, right into my ears from your, out of your mouth. Like that, there's so much more. It's so much better in person communicating. And that's also why public speeches are powerful. Someone isn't talking to you. There might be speakers around you, but mostly you're hearing their voice directly out of their fucking mouth. You're watching them. Are they sweating? How are they behaving? How fast are they moving? How's their body language? How's their posture? How are they breathing? There's so much information that your brain is picking up that you're not even explicitly aware of necessarily unless you were like grilled and asked on it. You're just kind of watching someone, be a man up on stage or in a hallway conversation. And there's a lot that goes behind that. And that's why things get, businesses get started to, from the convention. They don't get started from a digital summit. No one goes to a fucking, e-summit for some internet marketing bullshit or even a Manosphere thing, whatever. And they're like, oh man, I saw you in the chat. Let's start a fucking business. Like, this doesn't happen. Like, let's write a book together, man. Let's, start this meetup group for men in this city. Like, it doesn't fucking work like that. It happens in person, though, 1,000 times more often. Just because I think that, just because of the way we're built. We're physical beings in a physical universe. This is just how we operate as human beings. We're social beings. We need to be together. And there's other, you can look up science and research on this and stuff, but it has a lot to do with how your brain operates too. That's why internet communications can be so extremely savage and even autistic, because you're not even using parts of your brain to communicate with other people. You're just reading something on the internet and you're just like vomiting out a response, which can be fun, but it can also go to really, retarded extremes.
You can't
things get so nasty.
You can't see how far you can push it, and there's literally no pushback. The worst that someone can do is block you. You're not going to get punched in the face.
Yeah, exactly.
And that needs to be, and this is why women will say absolutely crazy things in public to men, and do crazy things. A friend of mine out the other day and says this girl thought someone robbed her of her cell phone, breaks a bottle and starts threatening the guy. And I'm like,
whoa.
They'll do these crazy things because they know they're not going to get knocked out. And I said to him, if it was a guy, someone would have knocked him out the moment they saw he was coming at them with a bottle, right? Yep. And like, yeah, it's a woman. The guy doesn't know what to do. What do I do with a violent woman?
Well, there's good videos too, though.
Online, all women, because we have no repercussions. So people behave like women. They get
occasionally you do see women learn the hard way, what the real world is like. And you'll see videos on, YouTube and Twitter and stuff where I remember one about a year or two ago I saw on Twitter, this girl in a crowd, she fucking straight up punched some guy. and good clean clock on him. He turned around and fucking knocked her ass out cold. And you could just tell she's just, and you see this with arrests too this year. There's been a lot of women getting arrested by law enforcement. They'll be screaming at the cop in his face, and then they spit at him, and then they're like, "Yep, you're going to jail." And she's like, "Hey!" They're just like, "No."
They gotta remember, man, a cop is not a man. He is a physical representation of the authority of the state. So he's going to arrest you. He doesn't care if you're a woman or a man or a dog or what.
They're just stunned that choices have consequences. Like they're so it's Zach Small, aka formerly Hunter Drew. I almost called him Hunter, but I didn't. I called him Zach. He's big on this. Choices have consequences. He gave a speech on it with the exact title of that. And the world has become, the Western world anyway, and particularly women, these nasty feminist women and stuff, feminists explicitly or feminist light, whatever, they're so detached from their choices having direct consequences that they're just infants. They're adult. They look like adults, but really they're just children. And it's just a pathetic way to live. Like it's sad, and it's also just fucked up and retarded. And
but that ties to the problem with men today being afraid of confrontation. When men are constantly confronting evil and stupidity and badness in the world, we suppress it. We keep it down. Women start to understand that there's consequences for actions. Other men understand that as well. I remember when I was a kid, the first day of school, my dad would come into school and have a private conversation with the teacher where he'd say, "If you hurt my kid or touch him or do anything to him, I'm going to come and kill you, and I'm going to bury you, and no one's ever going to find the body." And my dad was the kind of guy who could have done that if he wanted to as well. I have any problems with those teachers? Because he went in and had a confrontation right away with them at the beginning. Yeah. And so there was no need to confront them later after they'd done, if they'd smacked me or whatever, or done something they shouldn't do, because he headed the problem off initially. And as men, we need to be comfortable with confrontation. We need to head things off in the beginning. Sometimes the person we're confronting with isn't even the person that learns the lesson. It's someone watching that learns, that kind of behavior is going to get a bad reaction. Yep. I said this a little while ago that on Twitter, and on Facebook, I have women that are terrible and, say terrible things, but I never find bad women in real life. I never find women who treat me like shit in real life. And so I'm terrible women.
They're in America as well. They're in Canada.
Yeah. Well, my wife, and then actually it was one of our guys, one of the 21 guys said, "Well, it's probably you." The women that would act like that, they meet you and decide, "I'm not going to act like that." Or they meet you and say, "I'm going to get out of here because I don't want to be around this guy because I can't act like that around him. He won't put up with it."
There's truth to this, yeah.
Yeah, and I think to a large extent, the kind of people that we're around is the people we tolerate being around. Mm-hmm. And as men, if we're more intolerant of who is around us and we're more careful of that, we're going to cultivate a better environment for ourselves. We're going to start thinking people are great, because the ungreat people, we don't tolerate them.
Yeah.
And we need to do that globally at a large scale.
Oh, totally. Well, we should talk about Make Women Great Again for a second here, I think, because Make Women Great Again is basically an intolerance to shitty, nasty women who like feminist dogma and female supremacism and the future is female and toxic masculinity, all this really unhealthy garbage that feminists believe in that have ingrained into mostly women, but also men too. Make Women Great Again is a complete intolerance of that crap. I mean, that's really what the bottom line was. It's not just to make women great again. It's not just a positive thing for women. It's not just a positive thing for culture. It's not just a pushback strongly against all this feminist, garbage and Orwellian crap. It's also just a basic intolerance for it. You're a nasty woman, and I don't have tolerance not only for you, but all the women who behave like you. I don't have tolerance basically for the behavior pattern that you believe is normal, to act like you have a personality disorder. Like you're throwing symptoms every day of the week on Instagram of narcissistic personality disorder. Maybe you don't have it, but you're throwing symptoms of it, and borderline personality disorder, all this crazy shit, all this unhinged, really childlike behavior, temper tantrum 24/7, posting pictures of your ass 24/7, pictures of your boobs 24/7. This has, become normal for women today in America and in the West. And Make Women Great Again at a baseline, almost primal level between men and women is an intolerance for it. It's a big fucking no. Your grandma was better and you suck. Your grandma was feminine and fit, and you're fat and fucking nasty. I'm not okay with that. And you know, but look what happened when we did this, right? They went fucking nuts. We reached like 150 million people with Make Women Great Again, that campaign, which is a good thing. I mean, the fact that it triggered so many people, that shows you, I think, how the fact that it reached over 100 million people shows you how fucking unhealthy gender relations have become in the West, how unhealthy women have become, and even men, to the extent that we see the soy boys and all the related phenomena to that, all the male feminists who are almost all rapists and all these things. It's all fucking, you know, unhealthy garbage. And Make Women Great Again is a huge pushback against that. It's a big no.
When reaching 100 million, you said 100 million?
150 broadcasts.
150 million people. That's enough to start sending a ripple out that changes society. And this is not the last time you're going to do it. This is the first one. This is the smallest one. This is going to get bigger from here. And to a large extent, for younger men, it's giving them permission to, this is how you confront women.
Yep.
This is how you are intolerant of bad behavior. Yep. And this is how it's going to change things. And, you know, I remember seeing you in some of the interviews there where they're trying to rip you alive and you're just like enjoying it, and you're peaceful and you're happy and everything is good. And they're basically completely unable to get under your skin. Yep. And that was absolutely perfect. That stoic calmness in the face of their reading is what defeats them, because they expend a ton of emotional energy trying to get a response from you.
Yep.
You don't expend anything, just relaxing. And
my response is, you know, fake news. Completely wrong. You're fake news.
Yeah. Fake news. No, bit by bit, we change the world by acting in the right way in the world. And that sends out ripples. And it affects, very few men have the chance to affect the number of people that you have. Yeah. You know, reaching out to hundreds of millions of people, how many years have you been doing conferences now?
14
years. So 14 years doing conferences. Next year, I'm sure you're going to have a slate full of them again. Yep. And this is the type of thing that we need if we want to change the world. It's good to notice what's wrong in the world. It's even better to implement solutions and change things and actually make an positive action in the world. You know, there are people that, even the people that sometimes say, oh yeah, he's like so over the top, or, oh yeah, he really irritates me. I noticed though, they still have respect for you and they're still listening to your message. Mm-hmm. They want to,
can't help it.
They know that you're confronting something in them that needs to be confronted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm happy to do it. I mean, it's how my life has just kind of turned out. You know, I didn't even start the business. You know, I've been running this conference business for 14 years. I didn't start it as a business. It was a hobby. It was supposed to not even be a conference. It was supposed to be a meetup group, the first Under 21 convention. Well, Under 21 meetup is actually what it was called. Then it became the Under 21 convention. Then later a couple years later, it became the 21 convention. But it was not a business. It was supposed to be like a one-time meetup, became a one-time conference. And then the attendees were just asking me, when's the next one? It was an automatic, kind of just a genuine curiosity, like, when is the next one? I want to go to more of these. And I was 18 at that point when we had the first one. And I was just stunned. I was like, oh, next summer, same time. And now it's history at this point, 13, 14 years later. But yeah, this is what it is, man. I've been very fortunate to find myself in this path in life. And also, a lot of hard work and courage to stick to it. It's one thing to enter it kind of incidentally, see an opportunity and take the chance. But then to stick with it over time is a measure of fortitude and masculinity and courage and heart. And it's been hard. I mean, any business for a long period of time, so most of them fail. It's hard. Almost all of them fail by 10 years. But even by 5 years, almost a lot of them fail. And then by 10, almost all of them are gone. So yeah, 14 years, it's been awesome, man. I don't know how else to live. We've been talking about, agency and, leading your own life and having that direction. I don't know how people live any other way. I mean, I know that they do. I know that they are obviously finding a way to live this, like...
they survive.
Yeah, it's surviving, not thriving.
Surviving.
Yeah. I just hate that. Like, I don't know how else to live, and I don't care to know else how to live, other than how I do, leading my life and being an entrepreneur. And that's what I like to do. Not everyone, needs to be an entrepreneur necessarily, but everyone needs to lead their own life. Everyone needs to have 100% authorship and ownership of their own life and what's going to happen in the future of it. And
I feel that you may not be an entrepreneur, but you might be working with an entrepreneur that you believe in their mission. You believe in the mission of company. If you go to work every day and say, this is absolute shit, like, I hate this, I hate the people I work with, I hate the mission of the company, that's eating you up. You're selling a bit of your soul every day in exchange for money. And eventually you're going to run out of soul to sell. You know, so as men, we got to look for some mission in life that goes beyond earning bread every day. We got to earn something bigger than that, our place in society. If you want to meet men like Anthony Johnson, and you should go and look at the comments the notes below this video, there's a link to 21 Studios where it'll talk about whatever's coming up in the future that gets updated as new events are announced. Show up to one of the events. It's not just the speeches. After the speeches, before the speeches, and at the lunches, people are milling around. A lot of the speakers really enjoy talking to people. And this is going to change you. You attend one of these events, you attend an event with this quality, this caliber of men, that does rub off on you as a man. And one of the things I noticed as a man who does have my life together well and is you know, knows what masculinity is, it was really relaxing to walk into a room with a bunch of other actual men. I didn't feel like I was going to have to lead the group. I didn't feel like I was going to have to pull anybody along or you know, carry somebody. I walked into a room where I'm like, hey, I'm not at the top anymore. This is awesome. I like to be in the middle of the pack. That was so awesome. And if you are a very successful man, there's even more of a reason to show up and associate with these people. Get to know the people who are leading culture. Mainstream media is not the arbitrator of culture anymore. Even social media is disappearing as the arbitrator of culture. I believe that it's going to go more towards personal individuals who are influencing culture directly through their YouTube following, perhaps, but really through their websites, through their direct, you know, with 21 University, you put the videos directly in there for men to see. And I think all of the videos from the events go up there first, if I'm correct about that. Yeah,
they go to 21 University first, ad-free and censorship-free. In fact, I'm even thinking of creating, going forward next year, not this year, for 2020 speeches. It's already filmed and done, but we could try it. But I think 2021 is where we prep the speakers to do it. But basically, let the speakers, when you guys speak, you have free speech 100%. I don't censor anything you want to say. In fact, I directly tell you most times to say whatever you want. However, be mindful that I have to put it on YouTube and I can't control what YouTube does. I want to let you guys actually just say whatever you want. 100% free speech, including stuff that would get kicked off YouTube. But then maybe we'll edit a red band version that doesn't go on YouTube. And then, we'll put it on YouTube, but it'll literally just be like, whenever you say something that's not allowed, it'll just like blank out. And then go to 21 University to get the full speech. But then it'll continue on YouTube, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So there'll just be these weird edits that just block out what you say completely. Like it'll just go red band, censored.
This is the part YouTube doesn't want you to see. Go to 21 University to find out.
Exactly. Yeah, because I hate the fact, even I hate seeing speakers at my own conference censor themselves in any way, shape, or form. And the only time you guys are completely uncensored is in the workshops, because we don't film those, specifically for the purpose of the attendees getting an even better experience, an even more candid experience with the ideas and what the speaker actually fucking thinks. And, you know, on the stage, I can say whatever you want, but at the end of the day, if it gets kicked off YouTube, it kind of defeats the point of filming it. So I really want to find ways to enable you guys' expression of truth and what you believe to be true about reality in the world even higher. I love free speech. I love the truth. I love, you know, seeing you guys dish it out in the best way that you know how, even if I disagree. Usually I agree with you. That's why you're speaking, duh. But even ways I don't, like, I don't care. I want to see what you think, and I want the world to know what you think. And it annoys me to no end that YouTube and Google and the internet in general are in any way hostile to this. It just pisses me off, and I fucking hate it.
I do think that the more that they crack down with censorship, that will drive more and more people to alternative places to see the videos, like 21 University or to BitChute or other places. And I think it's actually good. They're going to break their own monopoly by acting like tyrants. And that's how it always goes. Tyrants break their own control because they lose the support of the viewers. They lose the support of the people. They lose that legitimacy that they have when they allow speech to be free, when they allow the truth to be told. We're seeing that in government. We're seeing that in social media. We've already, I mean, who still believes what they see on CNN? Nobody believes it.
Some sheep do, man. There's some sheep. I mean, some people are basically willing slaves. Like they embrace that kind of life.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the people who voted for. There's plenty of people who voted for Joe Biden, not just the dead ones and stuff, and all that. People actually, went out and took time out of their lives and affirmatively voted for this guy, maybe because they hated Trump or whatever. But I mean, look at what Joe Biden said about black people. If you don't vote for me, you ain't black.
Yeah.
This is and how many millions of black people voted for Joe Biden? That is the most disrespectful fucking thing imaginable that you could say to black voters who had, or that racial ethnicity and origin. They should have either voted for Trump or a third party or not voted. Joe Biden should have been completely off the table for basically all of them, except the ones who were masochistic and wanted to vote for someone who actually hated them and thought less of them for the way that they were born. This is disgusting. Had Mitt Romney said in 2012, if you don't vote for me, you ain't white, I didn't vote for Mitt Romney or Barack Obama, but I would have voted for Obama just to spite him, because that's so fucking disgusting. You think you own me? Because you're the same, you look the same as me? Fuck you. The fact that black Americans actually went out and voted for Biden is beyond disgusting. Like it's shameful. Either they were ignorant of him saying that, because the media covered it up, or they just didn't give a fuck, and they just lack self-respect. It's fucked up to the nines.
Well, they've been undermining the agency of the black community since pre-World War I. They've been, with the different social programs, attempting to get them so addicted to big government that they can't survive without it. And you'll see that most black people live in big cities where there's easy access to big government because they've done a great job of undermining their agency. That's why they destroyed the black family, was to undermine their agency.
I make my comments in context to that too. Like, I'm not ignorant of that. Same thing with feminism. Feminism hates black people more than any other group. I think they've killed millions of black babies, like Kanye West was tweeting about. They've encouraged single motherhood in the black American community to an extreme. 70% now of children are born out of wedlock and single mothers in the black community. It's sky high in the white and Hispanic communities too, at 40%, about each 39-40%, but the blacks are at 70. And that's a result of feminism. It's not just big government. It's not just these globalist communists and shit. It's really this like grade A, homogenized, ultra pasteurized feminism. And they've gone after the blacks more hardcore than any other race. And those results are devastating. Still, no black man or woman today should have voted for Joe Biden, I think, because specifically because he thought he owned them, and he insulted them publicly on a podcast with a black man too. I mean, holy shit.
I was surprised he didn't get called out immediately. You could see a bit of discomfort in the face of the interviewer, but I'm surprised he didn't call him out on it. But the mainstream media has been ordered not to call them out on their stuff. Yeah. Now, I can understand people not realizing how Biden was involved in a lot of the laws that were developed that ended up being responsible for greatly increasing the number of black people in prison and stuff like that. Some of his very racist comments from like 30 years ago. Yep. I can understand people not knowing about that. But what you're talking about is only from a few weeks back, basically.
Yeah.
From a few weeks before the election. Right. And it was out there. It was on social media. I don't know if it was on the news besides the original interview. But this is.
Can you imagine Trump saying, "If you don't vote for me, you ain't white"? I mean, holy shit! He would have never heard. That would have been just a nuclear bomb going off in the media, and with good cause though. Like, that's just fucking stupid. And so seeing Biden say it in reverse is just despicable.
Well, it gives us an indication of what work we need to do as men. We need to help men. And I always say male agency will save the West, because men have to take the lead in this. It is to a large extent our responsibility to set the boundaries of what's acceptable in society for our communities, for our people, that we interact with, and for the people we do business with. We have to set the boundaries. And as we do that, everyone around us, like a ripple effect, starts to change how they behave. And that is really the way to change the world. But you can't do that if you don't have agency. And if you're complaining a lot and not getting anything done, that's because you're lacking in agency. So I can help you. Follow this podcast, subscribe, go down to the links that are below, take a look at my website. I have more information on the website about how to develop agency. And I've written a book recently. how to reprogram your life and develop your pathway to agency. So teaching you how to get rid of all those little buttons that you've been programmed with, either from your parents or from school or from the social media and social interactions you've had, that allow people to manipulate you and undermine your agency.
Yep. I can't
Thank
wait to read
you
the book,
so much
man.
for joining us, Anthony, today.
Yeah, man. Is the book on Amazon? Can I order it there?
No, the book is only available right now through my website. And the reason for that is that it is actually, you literally take your mind apart and then put it back together again. And I'm a little hesitant to let it out to everybody that wants to buy the book, because I had some of the beta testers take their mind apart and not be able to put it back together without some help. Yeah. So I know that sounds weird, but this is why we're doing it with a course right now, so that we walk you through the steps. And once we figure out a way to make it more automated, then we'll be selling it on directly on Amazon.
Cool.
Yep. So thank you very much. It was great talking to you.
Yeah, man, I appreciate the opportunity to come on, and I look forward to seeing you again at 21 Convention next year in 2021.
Absolutely. Please like and subscribe, like this video and subscribe to the channel. And we're looking forward to having a lot more videos on this channel for the High Agency podcast. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.